Folsom Prison. It holds at the present time 1,800 men. One of them is Timothy Leary. He was brought here after 4 months in solitary confinement at California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo. Usually at this time, I would be going in to visit him. I'm allowed to see him 4 times a month. Today, instead, the cameras are going to be going in. This time, since his exile and his imprisonment, he's going to be allowed to speak. For those of you who know him, he's relaxed and he looks well. But behind the camera sits the warden, the assistant warden, and probably the captain of the guard. I am Joanna Leary, and I'd like to see him out of here as quick as possible. It's a long way from Harvard and West Point to Folsom State Prison.
Okay. Since we're going to be sitting here and chatting for a little while, first I think what I'd like to know is who is this man who has the name Timothy Leary? Who is Timothy Leary? Who is he as a person?
I'm a philosopher. I'm a psychologist who has been studying the nervous system for the last 30 years. I've written 10 books and hundreds of articles. I probably know as much or more about how the nervous system works, the far galactic outposts of awareness and the range of the human experience as any scientist around.
You also happen to be a person in prison.
Well, yes, I'm in prison, and that may seem odd, a philosopher in prison, but I have to say this about my profession. The best philosophers often end up in prison. If you're a good baseball player, you end up in the major leagues. If you're a really successful politician, you end up in Washington, I'm sorry to say. If you're really a good philosopher, you're coming out with new ideas about the 7 great destiny questions that are going to rattle the walls of the social institution. Most of the men that I model myself after have been lucky if they got away with just being in prison for their ideas.
As far as the general public's concerned, you're probably best known for your views on drugs. When did you really get started working with drugs?
Starting in 1960 at Harvard University.
And what role? How?
Well, for many years before that, as a psychologist and once studying the nervous system, knowing that the nervous system is the key to all human knowledge, I've been looking for instruments just like microscopes, to see how the mind and nervous system works. And in the 1960s, as we all know very well, drugs came along as modes of expanding consciousness, just like telescopes and microscopes. The nervous system is a biochemical structure, and drugs are the fuels or the instruments, just like tractors and jet engines expand our muscles and our legs and that sort of thing. If you're going to study the nervous system, drugs are one of the major tools.
You were looking at it from a research view. Did you ever go away from that view, or every time that you worked with drugs, were you looking at it from research?
Well, the philosopher is looking not just at the narrow research aspects, but for the implications. The great questions are, where did we come from, where are we going, we're on this planet, this spaceship Earth, how are we going to get along with each other, how can we use our heads? So that I've always been interested in finding ways of using our nervous system as an instrument to answer the basic questions of life. I think any scientist who really gets to the frontier of his science gets to these basic questions, gets kind of mystical, gets philosophic, it's inevitable, and I've accepted that responsibility. I think we need, at this time, a new philosophy. We've run out of the great navigational ideas of how we're going to get the great ship moving in the right direction.
10 years ago, you did have philosophy in a hallucinogenic revolution. What were you really advocating then?
Well, my main message is use your head, specifically. Learn how to use your nervous system. It's this, for the last 15 years, I've been studying my own nervous system. I've gotten to use my own nervous system the way Leeuwenhoek and the first men that got the microscope, or Galileo, the first guy that got the telescope. It takes years to learn how to focus it and dial it and tune it. I know that the nervous system is a computer, and we can program it in many different directions. It's like a series of motion picture or television cameras. We can focus it and turn it around on different objects. It's electronic, it's electric, we can dial it and tune it. It's there to be used. And the challenge of the human race right now, I call it the neurological age we're going into. We've got to learn how to use our head.
Are you ahead of your time? Is that why you haven't been accepted totally yet? Are you too far ahead of...
Yes, I'm in a kind of a time warp. I definitely am ahead of it now. There's a question whether I may be off in the right direction, and perhaps the great center movement of society and science won't follow me. These are the risks that the far-out scientist takes. But I have a certain empirical experimental proof that I'm not entirely wrong, because most everything that I said in 1962, 63, my testimony before Senate committees about how we could avoid a drug in this country, in those days I was almost alone as a voice saying this is going to happen and beware, don't let it happen. And I was considered pretty radical, for example, saying that marijuana should not be criminalized, that LSD should be turned over to the government to be treated like fissionable material, like atomic. In the subsequent years, most of my prophecies have come true, and many very conservative organs like the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Bar Association, even William Buckley, the conservative writer and television star, they're all coming around to positions that I was considered radical in espousing in the 1960s.
I believe you said 10 years ago that you wanted to change the spiritual level of the United States. Did you think of yourself as a drug messiah back in those days? You started your own church?
Well, if you hadn't asked me about drugs today, I wouldn't have brought it up. I'd talk about the nervous system. I'd talk about how we can use our knowledge to make this country a better place. I'd talk about how to reduce crime and that sort of thing. I want to point out that you're the one that's asking a question about drugs. Now, I know I have to answer a question about drugs because I've been labeled, as we say in prison, that's on my jacket. I have no more to do with drugs than Einstein has to do with the atomic bomb.
Now.
All the way through.
You never did 10 years ago.
Well, when I was lecturing, if you read my books, less than 10% of any book I've ever written, or 10 or 50% of any lecture I've ever given, is on drugs. And usually the drug question came up in the question and answer periods afterward. Now, when Albert Einstein got to the particular heaven or Folsom Prison hell, wherever his destiny led him, and he began talking about the equations of space-time and the relativity theory, I know that there was a reporter or a television man saying, yeah, Albert, but what about the atomic bomb? And he'd say, yeah, it's true that there were those crazy mixed-up kids got a hold of that atomic bomb on the basis of my theories and blew up Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So I have to take the responsibility for drugs as being one part of the philosophy that I've been teaching and studying and working on.
Are you saying 10 years ago that the news media just totally blew out of proportion what you were actually trying to achieve? Did you not advocate LSD?
No, I never advocated drugs. I defended drugs, different drugs, against unscientific charges. But as soon as you start saying marijuana is not a killer drug, you become an advocate.
In the people's mind.
Yeah, as I look in this camera and realize that people are going to be watching this program, I think it's safe to say that maybe a third of the audience generally likes me. They think I'm a philosopher in prison for my ideas, and they don't want me in prison. But I think there's another third that really dislikes me intensely and thinks that I've led the young people astray. There's another third probably that couldn't care less. You're busy enough with your own lives that my debate with the United States government is no concern of yours.